Oklahoma teen told police he killed his parents because they'd been communicating with him telepathically and were Satan worshippers. This according to an affidavit KWTV reported it obtained. 19-year-old Michael Elijah Walker is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. His mother told police he woke up to the sound of gunshots.
Police? Yes, I believe he does. The affidavit states Walker told his 17-year-old brother to hang up the phone. He says Walker told him he shot their parents because they were sending him messages telepathically and they were Satan worshipers. People who knew the couple are still in disbelief.
There really aren't any words to describe it.
Tyler Smith played in a band with Mike. He says the Walkers were well known in the metro and loved by many people.
All the friends, musicians, everybody, co-workers, anybody that they came in contact with, just keep them all in our thoughts.
The couple leave behind 3 children. One is now in the Oklahoma County Jail accused of the tragic crimes. Walker confessed to shooting his parents multiple times after an argument about Satanism.
I hope that we can all find some peace at some point.
Walker told police his parents never harmed him during that argument. He said his father only grabbed his leg, demanding the gun from him. In the studio, Jennifer Pierce, Oklahoma's own news.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Now, this story is obviously a story that we hear all the time, right? But how about this in reverse? This is something that should scare people as far as censorship, because when I hear this story, and listen, I'm not one of these people that's going to be here and tell you if the story's real or the story's not. I mean, I understand there's people that cover that stuff. For all to be real, it couldn't be. But what I take from this story is the fact that the narrative behind it is that there's a son who is speaking to his parents about Satanism, who believes that they telepathically were messing with his head and that they're Satanists. So what does that instantly tell you, right? It instantly plants seeds of what in people's heads about anyone who believes in the occult, anyone who believes in Satanism. Now, when I talk about Satanism, I'm not talking about the Satanic Temple or the Church of Satan, because those are fronts for Satanism. They're fronts that are there to cover up and be the lines of defense for any of these types of stories, right? They'll always come out when these types of stories occur because they'll say, oh, this is a tragic story, and, one of the reasons that would fuel somebody like this into, who happens to be schizophrenic, well, one of the things that would fuel someone like this is hearing all these online stories about Satanism, and really what we are is an organization that believes in the LGBT and women's rights. That's the whole purpose of stories like this even hitting the mainstream, but more importantly, the narrative that they take from it, right? Instead of the story just being about this horrible thing that happened with a guy, a young kid, a teen, whatever you want to say his age is, and what he did to his parents, right? They have to obviously pull this and say, well, he had a mental disorder and he was talking to his parents about Satanism, right? So then they can come out and they could say what? They could say, well, all these sensationalized stories out there are all made up. And that, people that could call for an uprising, they shouldn't be allowed to have the channels and stuff because they're putting out fake and misinformation, even though they never address the stuff that I talk about, the signs, the symbols, the connections to Freemasonry, the connections to all these secret societies, right? All these stories that have come out that they claim have been debunked, like McMartin preschool and all this, where kids come forward and say this stuff and they think, the kids are being influenced by the parents are telling them to say it. I mean, there's always an excuse, right? There's always something, and they just think that in a world where we have the technology and all the things that we have now, they can't hide for much longer, and they know that they can't. So what they're doing is they're amping up the speed for which they're going to, come out and have people already indoctrinated with the satanic mindset, the satanic beliefs, right? The do without will mindset, the acceptance of all these things, the trans, everything that we see going on, pro-abortion, right? Because then it makes it easier for them to come out, because how much longer do you think they can hide? Now, I understand that most of these real satanic rituals and all these things occur underground. Okay, I've covered that before. Even the fact that they try to hint at and make fun of conspiracy theorists who believe that something's going on under the Denver airport or in the Ozarks or in Virginia, right outside of Washington D.C., Emerald City. Okay, these are all documented places that exist underground. Okay, whether they want to, whether they want to sit there and they want to deflect and say, "Oh, and yeah, we're doing all this bad stuff down there." Well, what are you doing down there? Right? What do you have a right to be down there and not tell the American people what's going on? That our government's doing fishy things underground or in the mountains of the Ozarks. I mean, give me a break, right? So you take a story like this, which again, sad story if it's a true story. But you look around, and the first thing that they say is sending a message telepathically, and they were Satan worshippers, right? And then they go on to kind of give the background of the parents, how they were, for schizophrenic, right? Aren't there institutions and things like that? And I'm not saying that everyone who's schizophrenic should be like, but the reason that they want you to know that is they want to link it. They want you to say mental illness. This is one of the quotes that comes out. Mental illness is real and it's devastating. He was not and has not been in the right state of mind for a few years now, right? The last conversation that he has with his parents is about what? Satanism. Asking them about Satanism, asking them if they're Satanists. And then we're supposed to believe, whatever the conversation led to, that was the thing that made him go off and go do this. Well, that's what they want you to think. Of course, that's what they want you to think, right? Because this is how they start to censor people who are exposing the occult. And that's what they want. That's what they need, right? We see violence going on and events occurring at all of these types of places that happen to be linked to all of these types of conspiracies, or what they would deem conspiracies, right? I mean, what's next? We're going to see one at a Freemason lodge. So they can come out and they can say, "Oh, people are calling for an uprising, are calling for violence against these people." Not calling for violence against anybody, saying that these things shouldn't be done in secret, that they should be run out of town. They shouldn't exist because secret orders are good for nobody. If they're not hiding anything like they claim, then do it in public, right? Where anyone can walk in and watch your ritual, so we can all see what you're up to. Just like if somebody walked into a church. So this whole story obviously is, this is a news story. This just happened a couple days ago. But when I see this, I immediately go, "Oh, great," because here comes more types of censorship. Here comes the Satanic Temple coming out, and what they'll say and deflect is that all we are is a political organization. There's tons of misinformation out there, and of course everyone's going to believe that because nobody believes that people are liars. They just give them the benefit of the doubt, right? And Satan's the master of lies, of course. So these people just sit there and they lie. And then they talk about people like me and they say, "Oh, we're all crazy." And then they're like, "Well, prove some of this stuff," right? And if I show signs and symbols and things like that, just Baphomet or the pentagram, they just go, "Oh, it's all a marketing ploy. We don't believe in it actually." So we have to censor people like Call for an Uprising and others from talking about Satanism because it could lead to this type of stuff happening. And this is pretty much what we're seeing across the board with conspiracies, right? This is why they don't want you talking about, any of these things that happen, because like the thing we saw, we're at Comet Ping Pong, right? Oh, because the guy saw these stories on YouTube, he went in and just happened to shoot a computer and nothing else, right? And this is to get the American public to think, okay, these people are dangerous. That's what they continue to need to do. That's what you just heard with the vaccinations, right? What was the whole thing behind the vaccinations? These people are dangerous who are anti-vaccination because they're affecting their children. They could cause their children to die of the flu because some crazy conspiracy they heard online. So we have to censor anti-vaccination stuff. Meanwhile, they want us all vaccinated. They want us all sick, right? But people don't want to believe that stuff. Right, so we're seeing it from all walks of life. There's an attack on all of these, things that a lot of us talk about because it's easy for them. They could just have events, or even if the events are real, because they're not always staged, they're not always fake, but they can take a narrative and they can pin it right to it. They could take a story like this in a state like Oklahoma, where we've seen tons of black masses, invocations, and all that other crap that the Satanists have been doing there, right? And then the other states over down there in Arkansas with the Ten Commandment thing, getting run over and the Baphomet statue showing up. I mean, this is the world that we live in now, where you need to read these stories and you need to read between the lines. Because the message and the thing that they emphasize in the story, again, you could go through this article. Elijah Walker told investigators during a police interview that an argument began with his parents when he asked them a question about Satanism. Right? He asked him a question about Satanism. He told detectives the argument took place in his bedroom and he had his gun sitting next to him on his bed. Right? And this is the last conversation they had. Talking about Satanism, it triggers him and he goes off and does this to his parents. Right? So stories like this, when they come out, it affects you, it affects me, it affects free speech, it affects questioning the narrative, because this is why I've said since I've started my channel, and I've talked about Satanism and the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple, I should say, is that they're there to be on the front lines. They're there to act and present themselves as a political movement. That's why their film is getting in Sundance, right? That's why they're showing up on Fox News, because they want to make sure that they can have this image of what Satanism in 2018 is, and that, the satanic panic of the past is trying to reemerge its ugly head. And these people are here to say that it's a political group, a political organization, just like we see the Masons coming out of the woodwork, defending all of the stuff of Freemasonry, how they don't worship Lucifer, right? And they get all butthurt about it when you call them out on it, because they need to keep it secret however they can while they continue to indoctrinate people. And eventually they won't have to keep it secret, because this society will want to be a part of it. They will want to be Satanists, right? Because all of the things that they're indoctrinating people with are all the part of the beliefs, the tenets of Satanism. Doing the opposite of what the Bible says, doing the opposite of what God says, doing what thou wilt. And remember, all of this is under love, the umbrella of love, which is the deception. All right? So channels like this, I mean, who knows? I'm not going to sit here and beat a drum about censorship. We've all gone through it on YouTube, no matter what you talk about. Okay, no one's had it worse than anyone else. People have lost channels. People have come back. That's why it's important for you guys, the listeners, just to stay subscribed to the backup channels, become a patron if you can, and constantly just check in for content, because you're not going to constantly get the email notifications. Make sure your notification button is clicked, which I never tell people to do. If you like the video, if you really don't like the video, don't thumbs it up. But if you think it's important, thumbs it up, because this is how more people will find the video. It'll be recommended and things like that. Now that might have changed since the new algorithm again, but this is why we all have to stick together, because we have to make sure, at the very least, whether you think some of the stuff that I talk about is ridiculous or not, I can't convince everybody or, show them, or their brain doesn't operate the same way mine does, where they might not think any of this stuff is relevant. That's fine. But at the end of the day, we all believe in free speech. We all have a right to have free speech. And if they create events and do things like that, then they're going to start scaring people away from talking about and exposing Satanism. And they're going to make it like a taboo thing. Oh, they can't talk about it. We can't have a YouTube channel about it. You can't have a website about it, because you're giving misinformation, and it's triggering people into doing things like what this kid did, right? So keep those things in mind when you hear stories like this. Again, I appreciate the support everyone's been giving the channel. I leave the links up below. God bless all of you and your families, and just be safe out there.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
To today's show and ask those of you who have Illuminati agenda and the ushering in of the Antichrist. Today's show, we're going to expose another Illuminati hand symbol, another symbol that's in plain sight that they constantly flash, but you would never notice, and that is the hidden hand. It is the hidden hand of the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry. Now, what I've been trying to tell people on this channel is that it's so important to look for symbols, because these people speak in symbols. There's things that you would never think of looking at in a painting before, because they have trained our brain to work a certain way while theirs works a different way. They're brought up, their children aren't brought up in the public school systems or in any of these school systems that we go through. They're brought up in a different school system. They train and teach their own, the secrets of the occult, the secrets of Freemasonry, and all of these things. They're ushered in that way, while we're thrown into, a school system where we learn fake history and all of these fake things that dumb us down and make us stupid. So we don't look for these things. But if you look, it becomes more and more obvious, as I'll show you with the hidden hand. As you see all of these prominent people in history that flash this symbol, which is the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry. It's a sign of power for the elitists, for the Freemason. I'll start with using a quote by Manly P. Hall in his book Secret Destiny of America. Today's thinking toward a democratic world state is neither a new trend nor an accidental circumstance. Work of setting up the background of knowledge necessary to the establishing of enlightened democracy among all nations has been carried on for many hundreds of years by secret societies. Because all this knowledge and all this hidden stuff is passed on through the Masonic lodges, like I've been telling you, which is the recruiting ground for the Illuminati, for the occult. This is where they are taught that they're their own gods. They get all this power, and we're all peasants to them. And they dumb us down and put us through the systems, and then they raise the children, and they raise society on the television set, and false idol worship, and all this stuff. And that's how we are today. But it is essential in your awakening process to start training your brain when you're watching television, when you're doing anything, watching videos on YouTube, when you're seeing somebody talk, if anything, looking at pictures in museums, to look for the hand symbols. And it's not just the basic hand symbols that we talked about, which is the 666, the overly obvious ones that they flash. Okay, because the Freemasons speak in secret code. They have secret handshakes. Yes, it's true. They have secret handshakes. They have secret codes. They flash to one another on the television set all the time. And one of which is this one, the hidden hand. So like I mentioned, this is from the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry. When they get to this degree, they are told the name of God. And his name is Jah-Bulon, Jahbulon, which is a combination of words. The first word being Jehovah, okay, of the varieties of the sacred name, and using the different nations of the earth, three particularly merit the attention of the Royal Arch Freemasons. Jah, the name of God, is found in the 68th Psalm. Okay, the second part of the word, the Bul, also refers to Baal. This word signifies Lord, Master, or Possessor, and hence it was applied by many nations of the East to denote the Lord of all things and the Master of the world, referring to Baal, Lucifer. Okay, and then the third part is the O-N at the end, on. This was the name which Jehovah was worshipped among the Egyptians. So this is what they find out as they go through Freemasonry. They find out the true name of God, that we've all been misled, and then they find out that the real mysteries of life is that we are, as human beings, God, that we have all the powers of the universe. They use this through witchcraft, through sorcery, through all the things that these people end up doing. But as they go through Freemason, this is what's exposed to them. That's why there's levels in Freemasonry. That's why people don't understand. They'll say, I know a guy who was a Freemason. Right, well, he was probably a first, second, or third degree Freemason. He just joined it because he was looking to get involved in something. He has no idea what he's doing. The next thing you know, one of the first ceremonies they do, he's in his underwear on the floor with a knife to his neck, wearing a blindfold, told that if he ever reveals the secrets of Freemasonry, he'll be killed. And then this guy doesn't have a clue what's going on, and he kind of just might stick around. He might look to go further. But the people who go further up the ladder, who continue to graduate from degree to degree, these are the ones who become rulers. Right? These are the people that get put in positions of power. Now, the prominent positions of power in our world are all obviously Freemasons who have gotten to a high degree of masonry, but also people who are part of a bloodline. So some of these people who might just join a lodge and think that if they get to the 30th degree, that they're going to be the next president of the United States. It's pretty rare if you're not a part of the bloodline, but you will be put in a prominent if you want to run for local office, or even minor, or senator, or something like that, or be an executive of industry. This is what happens when you go through the lodge. But you also find out, like I said, that you are indeed a God on earth, and you also are revealed God's name according to what they believe. Now, what's interesting is that the whole idea behind the hidden hand is apparently from Exodus 4:6, where the Lord furthermore said to him, now put your hand into your bosom. So he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was like snow. Then he said, put your hand into your bosom again. So he put his hand into his bosom again, and he took it out. He said, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. This is when God is speaking to Moses in Exodus 4:6. They interpret it as what we are is what we ultimately do. This isn't paying homage to the Lord. It's almost in a sense a mockery to God. But you can see all of these famous people, all these people through history, what they started to do was they would depict it in paintings. Now, this is one of the things I always tell people who are just fresh to waking up. When you show them paintings, this is